Good evening and welcome to the Parshah webcast. This week's Parshah, a portion of Eikev, which is the third portion of the book of Deuteronomy, which is a continuation of Moshe's last speech that he gives the Jewish people as he is getting ready to depart this world and preparing the Jewish people to enter into the land of Israel. And naturally in this speech he goes through, it's the last month of his life. He reminds the Jewish people of everything that happened over the last 40 years. The good things, the not so good things, and even the very negative things. One of the things that he mentions in this portion is the story of the golden calf. This portion, like the previous portion, has a lot in it, many details. It talks about the fact that they went through the desert with him and God was protecting them. They should never rely on their own power. And they have to always remember that God is there with them, and even when a person is in business and he does well, remember that you are not the one that is the source of this blessing, it is God. Just like in the desert, it was all God, and your successes are God's successes and everything, and so on and so forth. And reminds them of the manna, how they ate the manna. And so he reminds them also of the awful event that changed the course of history, which was known to us as the golden calf. And he tells them as follows. I came down the mountain. I'm going to quote to you. He says like this. So I turned and descended from the mountain, and the mountain was burning in fire, and the 2 tablets of the covenant were in my 2 hands. Then I saw, and behold, you had sinned to Hashem, your God. You made yourself a molten calf. You strayed quickly from the way that Hashem commanded you. So he says, what did I do? I grasped the 2 tablets and threw them from my 2 hands, and I shattered them before your eyes. Then I fell in prayer, I begged God for forgiveness, and he forgave you, and so on. Any questions that come to your mind as you read this? I'm going to read this again to you. I hope that maybe you'll jump at this yourself. So I turned and descended from the mountain, and the mountain was burning in fire, and the 2 tablets of the covenant were in my 2 hands. I grasped the 2 tablets and threw them from my 2 hands and shattered them. Any question?
He doesn't say why.
Well, he had them in his hands. And
why do you have to grasp?
Why do you have to grasp them?
Yeah, they're in his 2 hands already. What does he mean, I grasped them? He was holding them.
Right.
He retained them?
No.
I grasped them means
No, because
Hebrew means va'etpais.
Hashem was actually carrying them in his hands. He was elevating, helping.
So he didn't give Moshe the 2 tablets?
Yeah, but you couldn't carry them. They were made out of sapphire. They were very heavy.
Yeah. So Hashem was carrying with them.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one answer. He's saying that Hashem was carrying them, so when he says, I grasped and I pulled it away from Hashem.
If they were so
heavy,
how did he throw them down?
That's what you're saying. They grasped and pulled it away from Hashem because they were both holding it, and he threw it down. That's a good answer, by the way. That is an answer that is given.
You can say he put it to his heart, the tablet. He say, I went for 40 days. I took from God the whole things about the people, what they should do, the 10 Commandments. I took it for a moment to my heart, and I threw it because it was to my heart. That's all the things. And
so what's your answer? What does va'etpais mean? I grasp it. What does it mean?
That I took it for a moment to my heart.
That's not what it says here, but okay. You're saying that before he threw it down, he brought it closer to him, and then threw it down.
How they could
original answer.
Like
I never saw that, but it's a nice one.
Okay. But rather than
interesting answer. The answer he gave is just quoted in the Midrash. That God was holding it with him, and he said, God, leave go. And God didn't leave go. I guess he grabbed it and threw it down. Problem with that is that when you describe it like that, it sounds like God was holding on to it and Moshe was struggling and getting it away. And in other words, God was not interested in him throwing it down. That's why he had to pull it away from God and throw it down. Problem with that is that we find in other sources that it says that God was actually thankful to him for doing it. He was very happy that he threw it down and broke it. So it doesn't make sense that God was struggling with him and he pulled it away and pulled out. He wasn't struggling with him. He was very happy he did it. So what does it mean he grasped it? I have another question to ask you. And this is a very original question, not mine. Who did the two tablets belong to?
The Jewish people.
The Jewish people. Let's understand this. You're saying it belonged to the Jewish people.
Well, it wasn't given to them yet.
Up
Right,
until
but it belonged
Moshe
to them.
grasped it, I
It's
guess.
like everything else in the temple belonged to the Jewish people.
Right.
So then I have a very important question to ask you. Let's say I'm Moshe, and I'm holding on to this phone that belongs to all of you,
Yeah, I agree.
and I take and I throw it down.
Yeah, we're going to
I owe you guys damages. What right does Moshe have to break the tablets? That's something that I never asked permission. Belongs to you. So there's two things over here. Number one, he owes maybe he owes the Jewish people for damages.
But it wasn't
It sounds
given,
funny,
it
but
wasn't
it's
given-
a
but it
halachic
wasn't
question.
actually
It's a
given
legal
to them.
question.
Right.
What's the difference? I asked, who did it belong to? And you said the Jewish people.
Yeah, but
And you're not wrong. Seemingly, who did? I mean, it was given to God. God gave Moshe the two tablets
For the Jewish
to give the Jewish people, to bring them the Torah. So it's the Jewish people's Torah. Who gives him the right to take what belongs to you and me, to throw in the first floor?
But the
And if you're going to do it, pay me.
But the
Yes,
transaction...
one second. It was a very valuable thing. The Ten Commandments, one would think. God himself made it. You imagine someone would bring today an item that God himself made. Would you say, well, you can argue, well, there's not really much value in the two tablets, because what could you do with it already? You got to put it into an ark that remains in the Holy of Holies, and no one can ever touch it anyway. So you can say, maybe he doesn't always damage it because there was no value to it to begin with. And if there's no value, he doesn't owe you damages. Why do I owe you damages if I break something that belongs to you? Because it was valuable to you, and it had... What happens if I break something that has no value? I don't have to pay. There's no value, don't pay. What are you going to pay? How do you value? If there's no value, don't pay. There's nothing to pay. Then there's no need to pay. Because I didn't really damage you with anything. If I had no value, I didn't damage you. But could you say that about the tablets of God? God made two tablets and you're telling me there was no value to it? Even if they can't enjoy it. The very thing that it has tremendous value.
But at that time, I would think,
They were
coming
there.
from Moshe's, from Moshe, obviously, he must have felt that the transaction was not 100%
Valid.
completed, which means
What do you mean the transaction? Explain
the
what you mean.
transaction given to the
Jewish people.
Jewish people,
He didn't
Bnei
give it to them.
Yisrael, it was not given to Bnei Yisrael yet.
And
It
therefore
was
doesn't
given
belong
to
to them.
Moshe. It was given to Moshe.
an
Moshe
agent.
received
One
it.
second. If he uses me as an agent to
Right.
bring you $500, and I'm on my way giving it to you, and I say, you know what, I'm not giving you, I throw it in the fire. It's not yours. I could say that I didn't give it to you yet, so I don't have to pay you for the $500 just because I didn't give it to you. God gave Moshe something to give the Jewish people, and he goes and breaks it. I mean, I'm not even getting into the question of why he broke it and that whole business. The legal aspect over here is what is unperturbed. Now, so let's go with the notion that the reason he didn't have to pay them was because at the end of the day, they couldn't use it. There was no value for them. There was no way they can benefit from it. It was going to lay in the Holy of Holies. So there was no value you can put on it because they couldn't enjoy it. So there's nothing to pay. And let me ask you then, I'll take this a step further. And even if you don't have any value,
Still yours.
it's not mine. You're a thief. So let's say you don't owe me damage, but a thief you are. I'll give you an example. A halachic example. Chametz on Pesach. Right? I'm not allowed to have any benefit from it. Let's say I have 10 boxes of cereal in my house. So at the time, midday of Pesach, of Erev Pesach, it becomes prohibited for me to use it, right? Or even benefit from it. So in the sense, it's no longer valuable to me. And by the way, I'm not allowed to use it after Pesach either. So it loses its value to me. Are you allowed to come into my house in the middle of Pesach and say, well, you don't have any value for it anyway, I'm taking it. It's not permission. Are you allowed to do that?
No.
You're not allowed? Yes, see? So let's even say that he doesn't have to pay them. By the way, on Pesach, if you damage my matzah, my chametz, you don't have to pay. Because it's got no value. And the idea of damage is with its value. But a thief you are. If you took away my chametz from me without permission, you are a thief. You're not allowed to do that. So let's even say the luchos, the tablets, don't have value to the Jewish people because there's nothing they can do with it. They can't put it on display in their living room and invite guests, look what I have, right? They can't do that. They have to put it in a box that no one can ever see. Except for the Kohen Gadol once a year. And even he doesn't see in the box. So it's kind of like laying away, there's no value, therefore there's no damages. The Moshe got away on that loophole. How about theft? He took something that belongs to us and he destroyed it. Who gave him the permission and why wasn't he concerned of being considered a thief?
If God didn't let go of it, though,
Yeah.
then to me, the transaction wasn't complete. He grabbed it from Hashem so that Hashem doesn't.
We're not going with that
Okay.
theory. I said that doesn't exactly cut
I don't agree with this theory at all.
With which theory?
That's God struggle with him. Because I tell you something simple. I mean, we make an argument of loose terms. If Moses came down and he saw the calf, right? It means the people saw Moses. Some people. And God is struggling with him, so they saw the hand of God. You don't allow to see God. I don't agree with
Who
this.
said that they saw it? I mean, they didn't see
No,
it.
They
you
don't have to
understand
see
my
it.
simple logic.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say
Moses
God
comes from the mountain. He see the calf, right?
Yeah.
Now he see the calf. That means that the people saw. Some people saw Moses.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they saw God.
That doesn't mean God could have
Doesn't
been
mean they
hidden.
saw God.
But he
Nah.
struggled with God over the
But
tablet.
God wasn't a physical being that you could say that he had
They
two hands.
say
over
the
it.
hand of God. So
No,
what?
Not
Nah,
physical.
physical.
Of course not physical. All right, let's move on. It's not physical, obviously.
Could it be that they broke one of the commandments before it was even handed over to
And
them?
therefore they lost the rights of it. What does that say? I mean, that
They were worshiping
An idol.
they're worshiping an idol doesn't mean that this is no longer theirs. So first of all, let me say to you the following. Regarding the argument of damages, you can answer simply. I answered one way, that it had no real value. I can even go a step further. Let's even say it did have value.
Sapphire.
But, sapphire and good stuff, yeah. But, still, why did he break it? Why did he break the tablets? You know the reason.
So that they wouldn't.
The reason he broke it was because they now were in trouble. They heard 40 days ago they heard from God the mitzvah. Do not worship idols. And now they're worshiping idols. Right? So, and to give a metaphor, they married God on Mount Sinai and they cheated on him. Right? They went out now. They're married to God and they went and had, and started an affair with an idol. So what happens to a woman that's married that goes and commits adultery? She's liable to the death penalty. So Moshe sees this in front of his face, right there. He says, I give them this.
They're dead.
They're dead. They're married. So he decided, you know what, I'm not going to give them the marriage contract. The 10 Commandments are the marriage contract.
Right.
So they're technically not married. They're just engaged.
Right.
Or not even engaged, whatever. An engaged woman or a single woman that's not married is not liable to the death penalty if she's with another man. So the Jewish people, they never got the commandments. They never got the 10 Commandments. So it's all my problem. It's not their problem.
So he took it upon himself.
Wait a minute. So he took it upon himself, but that was for the benefit of the Jewish
Of
people.
course.
See, damaged, but they got something even greater as a result. They got their life.
Right.
So therefore, you could say that he doesn't owe them anything. On the contrary, if anything, they owe him. He helped them with the breaking of the tablets.
Waiting for the box.
So that's one. So you can have these two answers. Either because he didn't owe them damages because he helped them, or because it had no value. But the theft problem is a problem. You give me all the excuses in the world, you helped me, but you stole something from me without my permission. That makes you a ganav. Imagine I go to your house and I steal something from you, and I say to you, I'll give you an example. I'm hungry, and you have a good loaf of bread in your house, and I'm really, really, excited about that loaf of bread. So I go into your house and I take it away from you. And in my mind, I say, I'm going to pay him 2 loaves. Allowed or not allowed?
No.
Of course not. You went you stole his bread. You can make it better for him? That doesn't work that way. Theft is theft. So Moshe Rabbeinu also, how did he steal this?
But the value was not in the physical.
I'm not talking about the value.
Okay.
I'm talking about the theft problem. So either way, even if you say there's no problem with damages, there's a problem with value. If you're saying that he broke their tablets, it's not a problem, but he stole their tablets, that's a real problem. So how could Moshe have done this? It was all wonderful. Yes, he helped them in all this, but at the end of the day, legally, this was a geneva. This was a theft. How do you get around that? And here's the answer. The Rebbe goes back and forth, like in a real Talmudic style. This answer, and he says no. There's another answer. He says no, but you can't say that because of some different reason. Until he comes to the final answer. I didn't give you the whole journey. I didn't go through the whole journey with you. I gave you a taste. I'll give you another. I'll take it one step further in this journey, just so that you see how beautiful this is. He posits the following theory. He says, how did God do this? He said, when God said the 10 Commandments, what did he say? In Hebrew, Anochi Hashem Elokeichem, or Anochi Hashem Elokecha?
Kacha.
What the difference between those two is, I am God, your God, plural, or I am God, your God, singular. How did he say it? In the singular. He's talking to 2.5 million people, and he's saying in singular, I am God, your God, to one person. So rabbis tell us that God did that for two reasons. Number one, to give Moshe a good way to get out of the golden calf problem. I was talking to you, not to everyone. He can go tell Moshe, you talked to me, you weren't talking to them, so they're not even liable. You spoke to me, you said, your God, you weren't even addressing them. So what kind of complaints do you have against them? So God gave him an out. He used language that he knew the golden calf was going to happen. So he opened the door for Moshe to beg forgiveness and get atonement. It's not that they weren't at fault. But the second reason the Rebbe says is like this. God wanted, every Jew felt at Mount Sinai as if the God was talking to him personally. Which means the ramifications are that when God gave the tablets to Moshe to give the Jewish people, he didn't give it to them as a community. Every person became a partner in those 2 stones. Every person had a piece of the action. Not there's some things that belong to the community. Not as partners. This building belongs to you. You have a piece of the action. We're not partners in this. It belongs to the community as a whole. You're not partners in this. Halachically, legally, it's not a partnership. It belongs to the community. It belongs to you. Move out of the community. It no longer belongs. You have no part of it. It belongs to the Jewish community of Weston. So there's 2 ways to look at the ownership of these 2 tablets. Either you can say it belongs to the whole community, a collective. And how much is it worth? Millions of dollars, that piece. Whatever it was, something special. But if everyone is a partner, God is talking to me individually. That means I became an individual owner of those tablets. But there are 2 million individuals, so with 2 million partners. So now we have a legal loophole over here. What's the legal loophole, says the Rebbe? How much are those tablets worth if you sold it on the market? Let's say give me a high price, 2 stones at the end of the way, sampirin, and how much would they cost in the market? Let's say $1 million. It's $1 million.
Everybody gets a dollar.
That means if you divide $1 million amongst 3 million people, every partner, no one person owns even a minimum amount to make it valuable in halachic terms, which is a shava pruta. It means a penny. Let's say this thing is worth there's 2.5, 3 million people. It's not worth 3 million pennies. That means if not every person has at least a penny,
It's not a thing.
it has no value. No one person has real value. So therefore there's no damages again. But the Rebbe said that's not a good answer, because first of all,
Pretty good one.
he said, one second, that's if it's a partnership. Each was the partner, and therefore you don't own enough to be considered an owner. There's not enough for it to divide amongst everyone. If it belongs to everyone as a collective, it's worth $2 million. But a billion pennies, whatever it is. But if we have to divide it amongst the 2 million partners, which is what the case was, no one owns enough to be considered having been damaged or stolen from. But the Rebbe says it's not a good answer, because the Torah says you're not allowed to steal even the smallest amount. I'm not allowed to go into your house and steal a little crumb. Even if it's less than a penny. It doesn't have value. I don't have to pay you for it. You're right, I don't have to pay you back because it doesn't have any value. But am I allowed to steal a crumb from your house? No. Moshe is not allowed to steal. We're back to square one.
Rabbi, what if
The answer is as follows,
What if you don't know if the crumb is there? Like the owner
No, we're
doesn't
talking
know.
about if you know and you're going to steal a crumb. You're saying I'm going to steal a crumb because it's less than the value of a pruta,
But he had
and
the
therefore I don't
habits.
have to pay you. It's not no value to you, so I can steal it. No, you can't. You may not have to pay him because it doesn't have a shava pruta, but you're not allowed to do it anyway. So no matter how much it was worth to every individual Jew, Moshe had no right to just decide, I'm stealing this from them. The Rebbe poses a new invention, a new novel idea regarding the 2 tablets. The Rebbe says these 2 tablets did not belong to the Jewish people. Everything in the temple did. But the one item in the temple that later got housed in the temple that had no relationship with the temple really, because if you think about it, the temple was built later when? 6 months after the story of the golden calf. And who paid the money to build the temple? The Jewish people. They donated, they gave it was their money. They built it was their thing. They owned everything in it. But the 2 tablets were given already months earlier to Moshe. They were told to house it in the temple, but it was not connected so much to the temple where you could say, just like the ark and the table and the menorah and the walls and the tapestry belong to everyone, this too. No. Who did it belong to? So the Medrash, the rabbis told us as follows. We find an interesting thing in the description where God tells Moshe to make the 2nd tablets. What does He tell him? Psol lecha, carve out to you. What does to you mean? For yourself. It will belong to you. Hashem said to Moshe, it's interesting. You're an interesting man. I told you to carve out something that I'm giving to you. It'll belong to you. But you were a nice man. You gave it to the Jewish people. The 2nd tablets, who did He give it to? It says, God told him it's yours, but He went ahead and gave it to the Jewish people. Gave them a gift. He gave them ownership of it. He didn't have to, but He did. It says that Moshe made the 2 tablets from his own materials. In his tent, he carved it out. Took 2 stones and carved that tablet. It was very expensive stuff. It was his. He made it. It was his. But God tells me, you're such a nice leader. You're such a good man. I gave you the tablets, and you then went ahead and gave it to the Jewish people. Nice man. So if he did it with the 2nd tablets, he probably did the same with the 1st tablets. Right? Hello?
Well, we don't know.
Yes. He did the same thing with the 1st tablets. And what was the first? Wait, we're not finished yet. The 1st tablets God gave him as a gift, did not belong to the Jewish people. And he went ahead and in his mind he said, I'm giving this to the Jewish people, just like he did with the 2nd. But now he comes down the mountain and he sees this debacle, this disaster in front of his eyes. So Moshe says, I got to break these tablets. The problem is it's not there. It's not mine anymore. I gave it to them. So what did he have to do?
Take him back.
He had to take him back. He had to, in his mind, undo his gift. And that's why the Pasuk says, I grabbed a hold of it. What does it mean he grabbed a hold of it? He grabbed a hold of it in his mind. He made it back his own. He took it away from the Jewish people. He undid the gift. That's the meaning over here. He grabbed a hold of it. I grasped it. What do you mean he grasped? It was in his hands already. He had to undo the gift that he gave the Jewish people, so it's not theirs anymore. It goes back to the original ownership, which is him. Psolochoy, you can carve it out for yourself. And he took it back. He took ownership of it. It doesn't belong to you. I'm not a thief. I don't know your damages. I don't know you anything. And he broke it for the benefit of the Jewish people. The Rebbe learns an incredibly important lesson from this. The beauty of Moshe Rabbi. Why did he break the tablets, you remember?
Yes.
Save the
contract. To avoid the
Save the
contract.
contract.
To avoid the consequences, that the Jewish people shouldn't be killed as a result. Because they were committing adultery, figuratively, right? They were worshipping an idol, they were married to God, and they're worshipping another man. So there's another husband. So what does Moshe do? He tells God, you're going to either forgive them, or get me out of your whole Torah. I want nothing to do with this whole Torah. That's the words he used to him. Erase me from this Torah. Do you understand the power of those words? Moshe's whole existence, his whole essence was Torah. He was identified with it. It became one with him. And he's ready to forgo it all to save the Jewish people. He put his life on the line, his whole existence, his whole essence, for the benefit of the Jewish people, so that they shouldn't suffer. So he breaks the tablets. He breaks the Torah to help the Jewish people, to build the Jewish people. He went a step further. He went a step further. Just like he had to self-sacrifice to save them from death, when he broke the tablets, he made sure that they should never be blamed for the breaking of the tablets. What did he do? He took it back to himself. He took back ownership of it. It's not theirs. They have nothing to do with it. All the blame will be on him. This is his love to the Jewish people. He didn't want them to suffer any consequences on any level, not for the worshiping of the golden calf and not for the breaking of the tablets. He removed it from their ownership. They have nothing to do. This is not them. This is Moshe Rabbi. So we see how the Rebbe takes one word in a verse. He grabbed a hold of it, although it was in his hands already. So the Medrash answers like you answer. Struggling with God, maybe the elders. There's another opinion in the Medrash that he was struggling with the elders. They already just saw it, they grabbed it, and he said no. Pulled it back and he threw it down. So either way you understand, but that's not the simple meaning of this verse. The Gemara does not accept that opinion. So the Rebbe looks for a legal, what happened over here? How could he have done such a thing? No one thinks of it in those terms, because we're so happy he broke it that he saved the Jewish people from death. But there's legal ramifications. The Rebbe goes into a whole long story about this. It's his, it wasn't theirs. God gave it to him, he took it back from them. So that it shouldn't be there, so that they should never be able to be associated with the breaking. But in the interim, it became his again. He couldn't be considered a ganav or a gazlan or a mazik or a damager. And this explains the legal, halachic allowance for him to have done what he did. Besides the self-sacrifice. Now you understand why the Jewish people loved Moshe?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you get leaders like that? We had a leader like that. Hashem that I've been leading like that. Love the Jewish people like nothing else like that. So, maybe Hashem help that once again we should be reunited with Moshe Rabbeinu, with all the Moshes of all the generations, with the coming of Mashiach speedily in our days. Amen.